So what are the implications of the Commission's decision today?
Well, I mean, this is something that's been brewing for a while, so it hasn't suddenly sprung onto the agenda. For the last couple of years, since the Law and Justice Party got into power in 2015, relations between Brussels and Warsaw have been difficult, to say the least. But it was the decision last Friday by the Polish Senate to move ahead with legislation on the judiciary that forced the hand of Brussels. That's why it's invoked Article 7 of the Lisbon Treaty, which could ultimately mean suspending Poland of its voting rights in Brussels. It may not necessarily get to that, but that could be the direction that we're moving. It's not excluded at this stage. What's happening at the moment is that Poland has been given time to assess the decision of the European Commission. If, however, Poland decides to reject the advice of the European Commission and ploughs ahead with the reforms, which its Prime Minister has already said it intends to do, then we get to the next stage. And at this point, it's not entirely clear what's going to happen. The so-called nuclear option of depriving Poland of its voting rights in Europe remains a possibility, but the problem really for that is that to achieve that end, all 28 members of the European Union have to be in favour, and it's quite likely, given what Hungary has said in the past about this, that Hungary would be opposed to it. Other options include depriving Poland of its much-needed aid. It gets billions of euros of aid from Brussels. Its economy would effectively be ruined without that aid. So that is a major consideration that Poland has to think about as it moves ahead.
Now, as you mentioned, it's been a couple of years now that the European Commission has been monitoring the situation in Poland. You explained why they've triggered Article 7 now, but what is it that's got them so worried exactly?
Well, there are really a number of things, including, as we saw in that report, crackdown on the media, infringement of human rights, but it's the judiciary which is at the heart of the problem at the moment. Last Friday, the Senate had introduced legislation yet to be approved by the President, which would essentially give Parliament and the executive, Parliament being where there's a massive majority for the ruling party, control over the Supreme Court and the National Council of the Judiciary, which appoints judges. The government says it's absolutely necessary to introduce these reforms because of inefficiency, slowness, and the remnants of what they call a post-communist mentality. Many people would sympathise with that point of view because there are problems in post-communist countries. It's the approach, though, that has alarmed Europe. And what the Europeans are saying is that this doesn't solve the problem. It returns Poland to the communist era approach to the judiciary.
All right.